So just a little introduction as to how you got into the service in the first place when you were in college.
Okay.
So go ahead and tell us about your college.
Okay, it was probably 1941, I believe. I was in college, and I took ROTC. And because I had ROTC in high school, I finished about 3 years of ROTC, and I got a commission in the Army, infantry commission, as a lieutenant. And that summer, after when I was home, I got called into service, and I reported to Wheeler, Indiana, as a training officer. It was a training camp. And about a year later, I got orders to go overseas. It was interesting. We went to Miami Beach, Florida, and we took about 2 weeks staging there, and we got on the airplane and opened our orders, and I was assigned to China. It was exciting. It took us about 2 months to get there. It was a wonderful adventure. And I was in China, attached to the Chinese Military Academy as a training officer. And the Japanese ran us out. They invaded our area. And they didn't know what to do with us, so the Army sent me to Merrill's Marauders in Burma, who was fighting in Burma. And after about 3 months in Mitchell, Merrill's Marauders just got wiped out. And they started a new unit. It was a Texas National Guard outfit called Mars Task Force. And our mission was a long-range penetration unit operating through the jungles in Burma. We were trying to wipe out the Japs who had taken over the Burma Road, because we had to get supplies into China, and we were building a Lido Road. So we were just security troops. And it's not conventional battle, it's like almost like Indian wars. We just walked through the jungles every day, single file. We had mules that carried our 3-day supply that we got from airlift. And we had one piece of artillery. It was a 37 millimeter little gun. And one of the mules carried that. So it was very primitive. And it was really a brigade. And every night we would form a perimeter. A perimeter was just sort of a circle of foxholes by companies. And after dark, nobody moved. You were just stuck there. Because the Japanese, every night the Japanese, if there weren't any in the area, they would try to infiltrate and find our foxholes and drop hand grenades in them. So this one night before we got in our foxholes, I met a kid. I'd never met him before. I think his name was McDowell, Rod McDowell. Nice kid. And we holed up. There were 2 guys, 2 men in every foxhole. And after it got dark, you stayed in that foxhole. You didn't get out no matter what happened, because these Japanese were climbing around on the ground, trying to find these foxholes so they could jump grenades into them. So then I sure as hell, somebody dropped a grenade in McDowell's foxhole, and he was badly wounded. And he climbed out of the foxhole, and he had remembered meeting me before it got dark, and he knew where my hole is, and he climbed in my hole, and he was in pain. He was breathing through his chest and screaming, and he was horribly. There was nobody, at night you couldn't get any medical attention for anybody, you just stayed in your hole. And all this screaming, I knew that it was going to attract the Japanese to my foxhole, and I had a partner in there. So I was responsible for my life and this other soldier's life, plus McDowell's. And I was going to have to kill him myself. I was going to have to, and I just remember praying to the Lord take him. When you pray for somebody to die, it's just unusual. It's just unbelievable. But actually, all of a sudden, the Lord did take him. He quit screaming, shut up, and we got through the night without a foxhole. So, that was the original unit was Minerals and Waters, and it was a Mars Task Force. And it was just jungle warfare. There were hills and jungles. We had to cut our way through with machetes some places. So we just went single file with these mules. We were 900 mules in this outfit. It was the most interesting experience. It's all different than the European theater. It was just jungle warfare.
Wow.
It was an exciting, unusual event.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. When you first told me, I thought this is something that needs to be memorialized, not because of its glamour, but because of the dramatic nature and the whole aspect of the uncertainty of what to do and how you even got there. And
well, it was a very unusual adventure. Very few people in my age had that experience.
right,
It wasn't like regular warfare.
right. And you never expected to go into the military. You were just doing ROTC in high school and college.
Yeah. Well, that was, see, I went to school in 1941, and that's when the war started.
Yes.
I hadn't planned on this at all.
And here we are in 2018.
Yeah. Well, I was just blessed that I was in the military and I got in ROTC, because as I went in as an officer, as a training officer, it probably spared my life. If I had just been drafted, I would have gone in and been in combat all the time.
Well, it was still a pretty close call, even as an officer.
But then being in China for a year, and just an instruction, the Japanese just raised Cain in China. They were all over the place. And we had to keep China in the war, and they had the coast cut off. We couldn't get any supplies into them. So the only way we could keep China going was through the Burma Road, through Burma. So it was an interesting assignment. It was just something that went way back to the old warfare type thing.
Wow. Almost like yesterday, though, in some ways, isn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
And we I think we walked around 475 miles that 6 months I was in Burma.
It was 6 months.
We just operated behind the lines. Sometimes we weren't any near any Japanese troops, because the Japanese were trying to evacuate then too. The war was winding up.
Wow. So that was how many years ago? This is 2018, so you're 90.
8.
You're 98.
So actually, that was I think it was 1944.
When that occurred.
Yeah.
So you spent how many years in the Army?
Well, I was in the Army about 4.5 years.
So you went in as a second lieutenant, came out
And I came out as a major.
as a major.
Yeah.
So you're still a major.
Yeah, well, yeah, I retired. That was the smartest thing I ever did. You got to go to camp for 2 weeks every year, and I always enjoyed it. It was an adventure.
Not too many people say that. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I wanted to have a record for myself, and I'm sure there's going to be others that will just.
Well, you know what? The military was one of the greatest adventures in my life.
Really?
I don't know what I would. It was just a great adventure, a great travel. I've been to the Taj Mahal in India, and I've seen. It really took us 2 months to get there. I flew the hump 4 times.
And that is what?
The hump was the air route through the Himalayan mountains.
Okay.
They were flying supplies into China after the Burma Road was cut off by the Japanese. And that's why we were in Burma. We were trying to get rid of the Japanese so we could restore and rebuild the road
Okay. So you flew that route
4 times.
and lived,
And there was over 600 planes crashed in that thing.
my,
Yeah. It was a nightmare. We had to fly, we didn't have any oxygen. We flew the Himalayas, and they're 25,000 feet. So we couldn't go over 12,000 feet, I think, because of the oxygen. And when you flew through the mountains, you looked out of the side windows and saw trees and things. It was an adventure. And then sometimes Jap Zeros were in there. They shot down a lot of cargo planes. So it was a nightmare.
oh my. But you still loved the experience.
Well, I mean, I was so blessed. I had so many interesting
Yes.
adventures.
Yes.
It was one of the greatest events of my life.
You know, you want to consider a new career while you still have a few years left as a recruiter for the U.S. Armed Forces.
I was on recruiting.
Oh, were you?
After I came back from overseas, I was stationed in a little military camp in the cornfields in Alabama. It was boring. And one day on the bulletin board, there was a sign that said they wanted volunteers for the recruiting service in the state of Alabama. And that's the only thing I ever volunteered for in the Army, because you just didn't do that. And I got the job, and it was a year's adventure. We lived in a hotel in Birmingham, Alabama. We worked in an office building. We ate lunch in restaurants. And I met my first wife there. And so it was really an adventure, a turning point in my life.
Oh, my goodness.
So you never know when you volunteer for something what's going to happen.